אדם שהוא נכנס לחנות של גוי, קנה דבר מסוים, שילם. הגוי החזיר לו עודף, לאחר מכן התברר ליהודי שהגוי החזיר לו עודף יותר ממה שצריך. אז פה מי זה? מי טעה? הגוי. פה זה ודאי, הגוי עצמו ספר, טעה, הביא לי משהו. במקרה כזה לא חובה, אין צריך חובה להחזיר לו את המיותר, ואין בזה גם איסור של גזל. אם זה יהודי חייב, כן, צריך להחזיר.
Alright guys, we're back. Did you miss me? I know you have. We're going to talk a little bit about judo concepts, particularly some judo concepts that Islam Makhachev shows a bit later on. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about Jews, okay? So now Jews have this thing in the Talmud where basically if someone gives you the incorrect change, you do not have to give that change back unless they are Jewish. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing, and I'm not advocating for it, and I don't believe in that. In the Western world, maybe the more civilized world, you would say that it's quite stingy. But let's play devil's advocate. Let's just say, hypothetically, if the religion influences the culture, and the culture influences the society, you could say that these rules emphasize a great amount of detail around money and the transaction of money, or transactions in general. If you're void of any wrongdoing, the onus is more so on the person to give the right change. I know this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm really just trying to be the big person and possibly look at it from their perspective, to make the case that this is not absolute scumbag behavior. Now, it might be to promote financial literacy, where the onus is on the person to give the right calculations back. Obviously separating race from religion. If the religion influences the culture of the society, they might value financial literacy over financial empathy. Again, not saying that this is my position, nor do I agree with it, but if I was to play devil's advocate and really give them the benefit of the doubt, to say that they're not stingy, you could argue that over here in the Western world, some say more civilized world, the system over here isn't that much better because we have similar disputes of exchange and value. People say all the time, hey, I'll do you a favor, you know, have this $5, don't worry about paying me back, it's alright, it's a favor. And then a few years time, hey, remember that $5 you owe me? I gave you that $5. It's not really a favor anymore, it's more of a debt. And people just revert back to being Jewy in the end anyway. Whereas the Jewish people, at least they had some contingencies where they outline very clearly and numerically in the Talmud, you know, you don't really owe them because they made the mistake. Again, just playing devil's advocate here, I do not agree with this. I'm not saying that I agree with this or that is my position, but it is an age-old story over here in the so-called civilized world where there are a lot of exchanges and transactions, much like the example of the $5. So the word favor has been diluted. So when you're looking at this mathematical approach to the value of things that aren't material, financial, and more so of morals, customs, gestures, who's to say that the Jewish way isn't a more accountable way? I mean, it's no secret that a lot of them are accountants. I mean, it's an age-old dispute. You could see it within even infants, siblings, arguing over what's owed to who and disputing over the justice or injustice of why they're owed something and how it's not fair that this person has more or less or what have you. And if Judaism is the oldest religion or one of the oldest religions and two cavemen were arguing over the same bone, the leader of the tribe can't have these disputes because then you don't have a society. You can't have cavemen arguing over the same bone and causing havoc amongst the society. You don't have a society then. You would have to create clear and concise moral codes to divide and justify the equal amounts owed to so and so. And then with the Jewish people, it's quite clear that they've taken a very numerical mathematical approach or system to create a harmony or supremacy, to solidify their supremacy amongst their economy. That's more or less void of emotions, empathy, and sort of the approach that maybe the rest of the world takes, where even though I don't have to give you this money back, out of the kindness of my heart, I will give it back to you because, you know, you might need it more than I do, and I just value honesty more. As opposed to accounting down to the decimal of what I'm owed and what you owe me. Clear, cut, concise, emotionless, no wiggle room, no humanity. Like I said, I mean, we pose to be more humane over here, but been plenty of times where people give things up for a favour that don't turn out to be a favour in the end anyway. So the mathematical approach could look to be a more streamlined protocol, sort of taking the human aspect out of transactions, whereas we use more words that invite more messy emotions that are involved in these transactions. They say that the Ashkenazi Jew have the highest IQ. It's very clear that they're very good at math. I believe there's a subsect of Judaism that believe that math is the language of God. It's a concept within Judaism, particularly within the Kabbalah, the mystical traditions of Judaism, that believe that math is the language of God because they see numerical patterns, ratios, and structures as reflections of the divine order of creation, which gives birth to some of the greatest Jewish minds of all time, Einstein and Freud and Marx, seeing patterns, recognizing patterns, collecting records, data. So transactions aren't always financial. It can be anywhere from, you know, moral transactions, ethical transactions, customs, gestures. If we look at some of the greatest minds in Jewish comedy, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David, and a lot of the themes of the show are based on disputes and transactions, transactional disputes, injustices, what someone's owed, what do I owe them, the value of what's owed, and the discussion of why things are valued, why they're valued. There's a very famous Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry David is unsatisfied with an apology bow from a Japanese man and confides in another Japanese man who says that the angle of the bow represents a shit bow.
Speak English?
Yes, I am fluent, yes.
Oh, I noticed that when you apologized to this man, you gave him a rather deep bow, almost 90 degrees.
Yes.
Yeah.
I spilled ice cream, so I'm very sorry. So I apologize to him, yes.
Yes. Now, the other night, a Japanese fellow apologized to me.
Yes.
But he only went down a few degrees, kind of like that.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that is not apology to you. No, he was not sorry at all.
He wasn't sorry?
No. He a little dismissive of you.
Dismissive?
Yes.
I got a dismissive bow?
Yes, a little bit shit bow.
Shit bow?
Shit bow.
A shit bow I got.
Yes.
I got a shit bow.
No bow would be better than that bow.
No bow better.
Yes. Little insulting to you.
Do you hear? Not the bow like that. Not sorry at all.
No.
A little bitty bow.
I'm sorry to tell you, but that was not apology.
Thank you very much. This has been very helpful to me.
You're very welcome.
Can you bow for thank you?
You can bow for thank you.
You can bow for thank you?
Sure, yes.
That's a thank you bow.
Thank you. Yes. Very good.
Good day to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good luck.
So Larry David, Jewing down to the degree of the bow, has seen this transaction as unjust and not a genuine gesture. So the value of it is in discussion. I mean, that's just one example of many examples of Curb Your Enthusiasm or Seinfeld episodes where someone has a dispute and they believe they were owed something, and then there's a discussion about what's owed and why it's owed that way, and they feel the unjust it's unjust that they didn't receive what they're owed. I mean, you could argue that what's going on in the strip right now is one big Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. I mean, the book says that we're owed this land. The book said it. It says it in the book. We're owed this. You know, this is what we're owed. You can see Larry David having this dispute, and you could see how they have been operating like this for many years. It seems as though they're just trying to figure out what's fair whilst removing all socialized customs and things that could make the transactions unclear. You know, just keep it with the numbers, keep it numerical, whereas over on the other side of the world, actually another Jewish comedy that comes to mind is This Is the End, where they all are figuring out how much everyone is allowed to eat, and then Jonah Hill, I believe, says that because he's a diabetic, he sort of needs the Milky Way, whereas everyone else might not have the privilege of having that Milky Way. But out of the kindness of our hearts, we see someone with an ailment, and even though it's not an equal share amongst everyone else, some people need a little bit more or a little bit less depending on their situation. Here, where favours might mean favours for now, but then later on it means a debt or a loan, you know? I mean, who knows? Maybe that's why all these jiu-jitsu gyms are falling apart, because the model of the gym is that the coach is going to teach techniques that will take you to the highest level, if that's the way your gym is branded as a high level gym. You know, as a sort of hobbyist gym, that's a different story, but jiu-jitsu is very knowledge based in a lot of areas as opposed to skill based, if that makes any sense. So once the knowledge is transferred, the coach kind of really doesn't have too much to add to it, unless they're a good coach. And by good coach, I mean, like, if you see in the Soviet system, a lot of the wrestling coaches, I mean most of the wrestling coaches, it was required or expected of them to have a master's degree in sports science, sports psychology, biomechanics, and all these kinds of things. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I mean, the coach is just regurgitating what he's seen on the internet. It's not the technique that's the important part, it's the detail, it's the situation. How valuable is a technique? How valuable is a coach? It depends. It depends on the situation, depends on the rule set, depends on the body types. A lot of people will see Islam Makhachev just do this Koichigari, this minor inner trip, and just see that move and say, oh, we'll talk about Islam's Judo, and oh yeah, you know the move, you know the name of the move, but you don't see what else is going on. It seems as though Islam's fighting quite a larger opponent, and in jiu-jitsu, when you're doing absolute divisions, open weight divisions, you're going to come across people of different weights and different sizes. You have to adjust. And so there's two ways you can go about this. You can either move yourself or you can move your opponent. A++ techniques would be moves that have both elements. So something like an arm drag, where you would have the arm drag grip to pull your opponent, plus cutting the corner yourself to amplify that, and also putting a strain on the rotator cuff in that particular arm orientation. Doesn't matter how big the person is, certain joints aren't supposed to go certain ways, which provide a robust grip, if you will. And so we have these kinds of effects, and in Judo we can take this one step further. We can see here Kosei Inoue using what's called a rebound. Unless, of course, it's a particular jiu-jitsu position where it's more knowledge-based and skill-based. And by that I mean, you know, if you're bottom half guard and someone's putting pressure on you and you put up a frame, that's not that too much skill. You're not going to have to drill that over and over again. You know, laying on your side and putting your elbow up, that's quite a simple movement. And if you're not completely retarded, you can throw your elbow up. But the skill is when to use it, the timing, it just comes with experience. But things where you have to think on your feet, I would say, is a skill. Things that are much faster pace. When there's a lack of knowledge and knowledge discrepancy, it's really the more knowledgeable guy that wins rather than the more skillful guy. As opposed to in wrestling, everyone knows a lot of all the moves. Everyone knows, and it's such a small margin of error before someone's on your back, and people have multiple ways to get to people's back. So it's more so it's more trickery and skill to know when to change to something else, to know when to defend, to know when to counter, to know when something's there and what something's not there. Whereas a lot of the dimensions are limited when your back is on the ground or you're on top of someone. It really limits their movement, hence the art of pinning. Jiu-Jitsu is really good at the art of pinning and unpinning. So it's more knowledge, so it's more knowledge based. You're copywriting moves and people are just showing what other people have told them, but the real value comes from the teacher and the details and the variables that I was talking about, and relaying that to their students through their experience. If they're a larger person, how they work this particular movement. If they're a smaller person, how they work that particular movement. How this move works better with these people, this move works better with that person. Not the move itself. The move itself is basically, I wouldn't say it's not valuable at all, but not knowing the context of it might as well render it useless, because once the technique is out there, it's like a magic trick. It's not worth much. The secret's out and then it loses its value because everyone teaches it. But the concepts behind it, the thinking for yourself, and then having the guidance of the coach to help you think for yourself, is a different thing. And how you measure that, I don't know. Gordon Ryan, Danaher, they say that they taught Nicky Rod the body lock, and now Nicky Rod's monetizing off the body lock, but they taught him that. But Jake Shields was the one that brought it to the gym, apparently. So they're saying that they're stealing their game, but then they molded their game off of Marcelo Garcia's game. But they added leg locks. I don't know how it goes. Maybe it's like the music industry where you have to have a 15% or 20% remix to make it your own. But copywriting physical movements is it's quite tricky. And then also acquiring a debt to the person you taught is another aspect of jiu-jitsu that's a very, very strange thing. You might think that someone's helping you out just because they want to see you succeed and help you to succeed, but more so maybe they're just trying to flex their knowledge, kind of stroke their ego. And it's not a free technique, it's more of a debt, because later on they're going to say, I helped that guy so much to do this, and do everything they've won and they've done is through me. And you can see how things just fall apart after that if you get Jewy about it. So it is an industry, yes, and it is a service, and there are businesses within the industry, so it does get a little bit murky whether something's a transaction or a favor, if someone's a friend or a client, these sort of things that are sort of unspoken about within the jiu-jitsu realm. And because they're unspoken about, it'll just unravel later on, because there aren't clear definitions of friends, competitors, teammates, coaches, lords, leaders, cult leaders. Coaching nowadays over here compared to coaches overseas in legitimate wrestling programs and curriculums and regimens that have degrees in sports science and masters in psychology, sports psychology, biomechanics. It doesn't compare. It doesn't even compare. They accumulate techniques and they think they have a breadth of knowledge because they have more techniques. No, it's not like that. It's the same as the Masanosuke Ono snap to the single leg. And I'm not throwing any shade at DPS and Earn Your Gold Medal. They got awesome channels, but they're showing the footwork and all these kinds of things, but they're missing the key ingredient, which is the ear snap to take the thumb post and the over tie off, and they're acting as if Masanosuke Ono is the one that invented it, when Haji Aliyev was doing it a long time ago. And they're missing the main point, and then they're showing these techniques, and these people are trying to pull it off in practice. They got the footwork right, and they just don't understand why it's not working. The details if you think about it, right, Judaism has a whole society of people that are basically accounting for. You think about it, Judaism is a culture and an idea of transactional accountability, and it's a whole culture based off of that. That's how their system works and how their economy flows. And if we take our example of the change that they don't believe that they owe back to the person, how I would justify it as devil's advocate and sort of steelman it against the people that say that's scumbag behavior, stingy behavior, is that it promotes the onus on the person giving the change to do better, to not make mistakes. Even though mistakes are a part of human nature, if there is this understanding or agreement that the person doesn't have to give you that money back, you're being punished because you're not on your A game. It creates an environment that breeds a lot of mathematical accuracy. It kind of promotes this idea that the person giving the change is an idiot and stupidity should be punished. As much as we like to think that we're not like that. So then as a consequence, the culture sort of promotes and celebrates intelligence or business acumen or financial literacy over things like empathy and giving, and really punish stupidity. You might think we're not like this, but you know, you might see someone doing something clearly unintelligent, let's say a diabetic that's had 3 heart transplants, on death's door eating a cheeseburger, and you might think, hey, maybe you should lay off the cheeseburgers, and then they attack you, they yell at you, they defend their position with such gusto that in the back of your mind you might think, hey, go for it, you shall be punished for your idiocy and I will find much glee in this. But we don't say that. We say, hey, like we understand them, we try to forgive them and all these kinds of things, but you might be a little bit more Jewy than you know. Especially to the Jews, they are a lot in the media in America, in the politics, the stock market, so how much of Jewish culture has already influenced American culture? They just believe that they're owned things. I mean, look what's going on in, you know, the strip right now. It's a dispute of who's owed what. It's like one big Curb Your Enthusiasm skit. You can see Larry David at the strip right now going, hey, this land was promised to us. You know? Oh, it says it in the book. This is what I'm owed. I'm sorry. I told myself to keep it specifically grappling. So we won't get into that. But I'm just saying, it says it in the Talmud. I have seen these people say that they can spit on non-Jewish people because there's a word for them and it's not a person. It's like basically like non-human scum of the earth. They're allowed to spit. They say that you could spit on you. They say that your life is not that valuable. You know? There's like a currency exchange, but it's not of the dollar. It's of morals. Because you know what I think every time I see a Jew? I think, what are you up to?
My Chinese name is Chai. Translated into English, it is wood. Into Yiddish, it's Wouter. That's how I chose the name Waldman. I'm the man of the wood. I was born in modern China. Modern China is now the classic or traditional China. So modern China is like a Western style country. It wasn't really Chinese. So in the modern China, we were not educated with tradition. We are cut off from the root. I feel the emptiness, the spiritual emptiness. I was taught when I was young in elementary school, the universe has no beginning no end. If you believe there's a beginning of everything, you're religious. You're like superstitious. You're stupid. In university, I was taught that the universe has a beginning called Big Bang. If you do not believe that the universe has a beginning, you're stupid. What's the truth? When I was young, communism was the truth. After the researcher realized that it cannot be. At the end of the university, I was approached by this English teacher who was a Christian missionary in disguise. He told me that a man who died on a cross, he was the truth. Who's telling the truth? In 1995, I started to research Christianity. I read maybe 10 versions of the Bible. English Bible or Chinese Bible are all translations. To know the truth, I have to read the original text. So in order to know, I learned Hebrew, or biblical Hebrew. After a while, like maybe 5 years, I can read the Bible in Hebrew. Who's telling the truth? Check the Bible. Hashem is one. And they say Hashem is three. This is three. This is one. They're not the same. There's no three there. You should keep Shabbos. The Christians don't keep Shabbos. 5 years later, 2000, I reached the conclusion that Christianity was wrong. Judaism has a whole piece. So I made the choice that I want to live this way of life. But in China, I couldn't. There was no synagogue when I decided. How can I keep kashrut? So I decided I have to go away. I felt that the land of Israel is my homeland. I found home. This was what I'm looking for. A sincere, honest, devoted life. I came to Israel, my parents, they were furious. And the media isn't friendly to the Jewish people. We occupied Arab lands. We slaughtered or massacred the Arab people. So from my parents' point of view, they thought that I joined an evil cult. And I went to an evil country. Now I think they reconciled somewhat. After I became Jewish, I found that Chinese culture has some similarity with Judaism. I wear a suit, I have a hat, and I have a beard. But think about it. It isn't that big difference. Right? The suit, made in China. This is Chinese suit. I have black shoes made in China. Also, this one is a hat. We call it the Hardy hat. The hat is also from China. So everything I have is made in China. So what's the difference?